We don't build armies the same way we used to. And we certainly don't play the game the way we used to. So let me ask you, why are you still building terrain the same old way? Find out a new way to build terrain today on Tactical Terrain. Welcome back to another episode of Tactical Terrain. As always, my name's Eric. This week, answer a couple of your messages and questions, mostly regarding how to draw arches and Eldar Wraithbone. The templates have been working well for lots of you, but a lot of you are a little confused on how to draw the original templates to make them look authentic, like some of the pictures we have here. We'll get right into that, always being helpful. So we're going to start first with a classic from middle school geometry. This is the 3-4-5 right triangle. Don't remember that? Or worried that your geometry teacher said you may have to use it someday? Here you go. 3-4-5 right triangle is a simple triangle that we have here. Bottom edge is 3 units across, 4 units tall, and the hypotenuse, so that long diagonal edge, you got it, is 5 inches long. What we're going to need is 2 of these actually to start. Thank you very much. We're going to flip that one around, and then the 2 4-sided height sections, we're going to stick those together to form a very large triangle that's 4 units tall and 6 units wide. Now we're going to use some ancient technology here from medieval times. It's called the compass. This was a big use in architecture back then. What that is you're going to stick the needle part of the compass in that bottom left corner that I've outlined here with an arrow, and the other side would be a pencil. And we're going to count out 5 units from that corner. So 1, 2, 3 would be the first triangle, then 4, 5 into the second triangle, put our pencil right there on the 5, and draw a curve or an arc, or basically if you want to go crazy, draw a whole circle, and to start our whole Gothic arch. This is a kind of real basic things. In newer days, absolutely I use a computer to help me with that, but it's the same basic process, same basic technology. And no, don't shell out the several $100s for Photoshop. You can do this with any simple graphics program. Inkscape is a popular one. So there we go. We've drawn our curve. And we're going to do the same thing now from the back right corner. So start in the corner, count out 5 units, and draw another curve. And you can already see the Gothic arch forming. If you can't quite see it, well, let's get rid of the guides that were our triangle, and then we left with the 2 curves and you can see the intersection points of the 2 curves forms our perfect Gothic arch. Now this alone is just the tip. If you want to show the rest of it, we're going to draw a rectangle, make it the same width as our overall arch, and then you can extend it to the size that you really want. Most Gothic arches that I've done research on, if this one happens to be 1, 2, 3, 4 units across, 1, 2, 3, 4 units across, so you should make it about 3 times as tall to get the right size. That's something you can mess around with all you want. Now when it comes to Eldar, it's a little different, but it's also the same, and it sounds a little confusing. What you want to do is do it with a lot of ovals. And people go, what? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We're going to start with a basic oval, and the key thing is you want to keep the same proportions, because interesting that Games Workshop kind of kept it. So our Gothic arch is 5 units tall and 4 units wide. We're going to do the same thing with our oval. So it's going to be from the longer end of the oval, which is basically a crooked circle. It's going to be 5 units tall, and then across the short end, so if you look at this, it's 5 units tall. And if you're to wrap a belt around the equator, the largest point, that'd be 4 units wide. Pretty simple stuff. And this is going to be the basis of all our Eldar templates. So what we're going to do is going to make one of these. And then if I'm using a computer program to do this, I'm going to click on this particular oval. I'm going to hit lock aspect ratio, which basically means if I change the sizes, it's going to change all the sizes of this particular piece all at once. So as you noticed here, the long edge, the 5 units. If I'm using ITC terrain, I want to make sure this is 9.5 inches tall. And if I'm doing Nova terrain, you guessed it, this needs to be 12 inches from end to end. By using the lock aspect ratio, the width will automatically expand out, keeping our 5:4 ratio without having to do a lot of complicated math. Very handy, especially if your math is not your strong point, and quite frankly, you want to get to cutting some foam as soon as possible, not doing a lot of math. Interesting enough that the width and the areas will come together pretty nicely. But that lock aspect ratio tool is super handy and is available in most programs. Now once we've got our first oval, which is the larger one of the bunch, we're going to make 2 more that are smaller. Still using that aspect ratio type thing. What we're going to do is copy and paste 2 additional ovals onto the screen. And then when we look in scale to size, we're going to change the sizing up. How big, how many do you need? That's really a personal preference for you. I'm going to give you 2 examples and see how much you can get done. But by all means, experiment with all you want, and you can see how these all work together. In this particular example, I have 3 that I've chosen at this particular point. So I have my big, and I have my small, and I have my medium. The full-size one that's at 50%, and then the smallest one being 25%. Usually that's enough for me to go wild and try to keep it simple, because as you can see, we're going to combine these together by overlapping them to create the Eldar shapes. Because right now you're probably looking at this and going, all I see is like uncooked baked beans. But yeah, we'll get to that. So here we go. The overlapping is the key to making the Eldar terrain and Eldar Wraithbone look. So what we're going to do is take our largest one first and make this sort of the base of our ruins. Remember, we've already set this up to be about 9.5 for ITC, 12 inches for Nova. So this is our base of our ruins at this particular point, and we're going to stack things on top of it. But first we got to get a base floor going. So I'm going to take some of the small ones, some of the medium ones, and kind of overlap it, sectioning it off here, looking, pretty simple. So now you're looking at this and it looks like something from microbiology, some sort of infection that you've gotten at this point. Don't worry. So once we got this, what we're going to do is cut out any of the overlapping sections. It'll look something like that. That looks pretty Eldar. Looks rather craft worldy, doesn't it? And again, these are all the same ovals over and over again. You can mix and match. Now, a question I do get quite a bit when they ask me about Eldar is, well, what about Dark Eldar? They look totally different. You can't use the same thing. And actually, you can. I've made the same mistake many of people did, is that you look at those weird Dark Eldar sharp corners, and they think I need to use more narrow ovals. No, you're actually going to use the same size ovals, the same 5:4 ratio type ovals. It's just the placement and how you overlap them makes a key difference. And I didn't get this until much later. I wasted a lot of time making really ugly Dark Eldar templates. The secret I found was reading an interview with Jess Goodwin, who does all the design work, and he described the difference between the Dark Eldar and the Craft World Eldar as Eldar inward. So they project, they're penitent of the fall of their race, whereas the Dark Eldar let their freak flag fly. They're more outward. Hey, I'm going to live life to the fullest until Slaanesh catches up with me. And you can see that in the overall design. The Eldar Falcon or Wave Hunter or any of their other tanks, the curves move inward, whereas if you look at a Dark Eldar Reaver, all their blades stick out. So you have all these like scimitar-shaped blades on the outside of that, and they projects out as opposed to inward. And we can do that same when we do our terrain design using these same pieces. And it's actually quite simple because all we have is these 3 ovals, and we can just cut and paste as much as we need. So it's an interesting idea. Think outward. One of the key things that will be different as we do with our next example is making sure that you leave enough space for all the other pieces involved. Okay, so what we're going to do is start with our original oval from our Craft World friends. And this time, instead of going as deep and intersecting, we're going to stick a lot of the smaller and medium-sized ovals, the 50 and 25 percenters, and they're going to kind of hang off the outside. There's a little bit of intersection, but you'll notice this is looking more like some sort of potato that's starting to spud on you for no apparent reason. So here we go, a couple of the pieces kind of sticking out, and well, maybe it looks like some sort of microbiology experiment or some weird Venn diagram, but hang in there. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put all our little pieces together, but notice they stick out much more. And then we're going to cut out all the intersections and get our overall shape. Don't believe me? Just hang on for a second. Because as you can see, this sticks out a little bit, so it's going to be a little bit larger on the base. So you may also want to do this vertically to get more of the jagged edges. Because when we take away the spaces, look at that. You have all the famous curves. You got the kind of, look at the bottom and then the bottom left and bottom right. You got all the nice little hooks and blades that are associated with the Dark Eldar. Experiment that. Let me know how you feel, how it works out for you, and look forward to talking to you next time. At up to 25% off retail every day. You can also pick up some cheap models in our secondhand shop. Some of the gems are quite rare, and sometimes they're fully painted. All of this is available at www.frontlinegaming.org.